Hello everyone, I'm Blee and this is a Toyota Yaris T-Sport, and this exact car here is one that I got rid of about 5 years ago. But as you can probably guess by the title of this video and by the fact it's sat here, I now own it once again. So what the heck's going on? Well, I'm going to go through that in this video as well as talk about some plans I've got for this car as we move forward. Now, some long-term viewers of the channel might actually recognise this car because it did feature in one of my very early reviews in sort of January, February time last year. But before I get into all of my history with the car, as well as some of the things I'm going to do with it into a bit of a project for the channel, I did just quickly want to say that do not worry, the Saab still exists and it is going strong. At the moment, my dad is running about in it and he is enjoying it as much as I do. And actually, as I stand here and think about it, I should probably do an update video featuring that car because it has now been with us for well over a year. But yes, don't worry, it is still going strong. But anyway, back to the T-Sport. So my story with this car actually started about 6 years ago in 2014. One cool thing I did find out whilst doing a little bit of research for this video is that actually tomorrow, so the day after I'm filming this, is 6 years to the day that I picked this car up. It's the 6th anniversary of me picking this car up, which I think is quite a nice milestone, especially as I'm now filming a review of it, or welcoming it to the channel rather, which 6 years ago is something I never thought I'd be doing. But anyway, yeah, so 6 years ago I bought this. I was about 19 and it was my second ever car and I was absolutely buzzing. As any youngish petrol heads will probably remember, their first car is always a bit crap because you're dictated by insurance, but finally for my second car, insurance was a bit cheaper and I could afford this and I was absolutely buzzing. Finally I had a car that wasn't really slow, it also handled well, and in my opinion it looked quite cool too. Having said that, and all of my enjoyment aside, it was less than a year later that I decided to replace it, and to this day I still don't know why that was, but yeah, less than a year after buying it I decided to get rid of it. However, it wasn't quite as easy as that because trying to find a buyer for this did prove tricky, and actually what ended up happening was my dad ended up driving this for the 5 years after I owned it for about a year. Now, I know it's not the average car for a 50-something-year-old, but to give this car credit, it has been an absolutely perfect runabout for him and it has never gone wrong and it hasn't cost him anything to run. It never really cost me anything during my first year of ownership either. So yeah, that kind of explains the story with this car and how it's been in the family for 6 years. So why then does this feel like the perfect opportunity to essentially swap out the Saab and into this? Well, there are a few reasons, and obviously for the purpose of this video I'm going to go through them right now. So firstly, out of all the cars I've owned, I think this is perhaps the one I think most fondly of. Now I admit this is probably not helped by the fact it's been around in the background for the last 5 years, but yeah, for the last year or so at least, I've definitely been thinking about spending some more time with this car before its time is up on this planet. This is probably going to sound a little bit romantic, but it's almost as though I feel like I've got unfinished business with this car. Like I said, it probably sounds a bit romantic and soppy, but I feel like I got rid of it too quickly back in the day, and I've actually got plenty more memories to make with it. So yeah, that last bit sounds very dodgy in fact, but yeah, I kind of feel like I've got unfinished business with this car, so that is the first reason for getting back into it. Secondly, as much as I love the Saab and I love the way that thing goes about being an effortless luxury barge, I do like cars that are nimble, you know, quick, you can rev them out and actually have a lot of fun on a B road. Unfortunately you can't really do that in the Saab, but yeah, B roads are where this thing absolutely excels and I love it. And one thing I probably will do moving forward is do an updated review on it, but that is obviously a video for another time. Now the third reason for getting back into this is kind of intertwined with the first two, and that is that basically I think it was now or never for this Yaris. The Saab's never far from my mind, but yeah, it was basically now or never for the Yaris. And what do I mean by that? Well, basically my dad's been running it for 5 years, I had it for a year prior, and it was getting to the point where it wasn't really getting any attention at all, and it was either going to be running to the ground or it was going to be sort of sold off extremely cheaply. And when I say running to the ground, it's going to be run past the point of no return in terms of maintenance. So I figured that if I wanted to get into it and try and save it and give it a second sort of breath of fresh air, a second life, a second chance, it had to be now rather than later. I mean, just look at this car. How could I not give this a second chance? I absolutely adore how it looks. I think it's a cracking looking little warm hatch, and actually moving forward, I think in a couple of years time, this generation Yaris is going to be quite rare on the roads. And at that point, this is going to be quite a cool looking little JDM retro car. But I know I am biased, so anyway. Moving forward, like I've kind of hinted at, this is going to become a bit of a project car for the channel, and that is because basically over the last 5 or 6 years, this car has had absolutely minimal outlay on it. Unless it has been broken, money hasn't been spent on it. Now, I'm aware that's not really the best way to own a car, but you've got to understand that my dad didn't really intend for this to be, you know, looked after like it was an enthusiast's car. When I had it, I did, you know, try and keep on top of stuff, but for the last 5 years, or at least the last few years certainly, this car has very much been run into the ground to the point you see it at now. And I will admit, it does look quite rough. Now, the first thing I've done with this car is quite a necessary thing, I think, is I've replaced the tyres all round. So we've now got a decent set of Pirellis all the way around, and they replaced some rather crap sort of ditch finders that were on it beforehand. And I will admit that the new tyres and the alignment that was done with them have transformed the way this thing drives already. It feels a million times better on the road. The ones that were on it did quite like to understeer, which was odd because this car does handle quite well as a rule of thumb. The main reason for swapping them though is because these are now 50 profile opposed to 55, and the 55s on the front at least, when you went over a bump, they did hit the arch. Next on the list of things to do is the brakes and suspension all round. Now, the stuff on it does work and it has been upgraded nicely, but it is probably time for a refresh. Like I say, it's been 5 or 6 years. I know I think the pads have been done, but it's certainly time to give the rest a bit of a refresh. Next on the list is going to be mechanicals. So obviously this car will get a full service under the bonnet. I also want to give it a proper going over to make sure it is mechanically as sound as possible. After that, the next thing will be a refresh or a refurb, sorry, of the wheels. These are all curbed to absolute buggery, and I do blame my dad for that, but like I say, he doesn't really care as much as I do, which is fine. I know everybody thinks about cars differently, but the wheels are due a much needed refurb, and I'll probably go a different colour to black, because at the moment they look in absolute state. And talking about being in an absolute state, that was a very crap transition. As we get around here, I don't claim this car's got mint bodywork. It's been around for a long time, and over the last 5 years there have been more car park dings and scratches to the general paintwork. That's nothing that can be, you know, nothing can be done about that. In fact, somebody did sit on the bonnet at some point. I know that was definitely not my dad, and they have dented it quite badly, which is annoying, but these little things, you know, they do happen over time. But down here, this bit here where you get stuff into the boot, has suffered quite a lot over the last five years. Now, the reason for that is, as I've already hinted at, this has been used as a workhorse. It's had to do tip runs, etc, etc. I'm not really going to do anything about the paintwork short of a respray. I don't think there is much I can do. And actually, I quite like the patina and the story that all these little dings and scratches say about the car. And actually, one last thing, I just forgot to do it as I was finishing this take. I do want to give the interior a good valet. The seats are a little bit stained, and I do need to sort out the middle section where the stereo is. When I upgraded the head unit 6 years ago, I got the wrong piece of plastic for the facelift model, so that means that the plastic trim that's in there now doesn't fit properly. So yes, the interior will get a bit of a going over as well. Right, so at the end of the last shot it started raining, so I've taken refuge inside the car for this outro. I'm resting you on top of the steering wheel, so I can only apologise if it's a little bit shaky. But to cut a long story short, and just to recap, 6 years ago I bought this as my second car. I got rid of it after about a year, but looking back, I don't think I had it for long enough. I did like this thing, I still like it, and I wanted to give it another chance before it sort of went to the scrapper, or it got too far gone in terms of maintenance, and that's why I've decided to have it back now. I think it's going to be a cool little thing to keep progress of on the channel. I'm really looking forward to seeing this thing refreshed and raring to go and ready to blitz some B roads. I do like how this thing drives, and I will do an updated review on it at some point, but probably when it's been refreshed. I think it's going to look like a cracking little thing with the refurbed wheels, you know, with the suspension and everything refreshed as well, so it just looks proper. I think it's going to be a great thing. I know that bodywork isn't brilliant, but actually the patina, I think it's going to make it look even cooler, because this car does have a bit of a story behind it, especially for me, and I think it's just going to be a cracking little B-road blitzer when it's done. Like I said though, the startup is still about, and I will probably try and do an update video on that at some point, but I should probably stop blabbering on now and say thank you for watching. I've been Blee. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.